Thank you, Palo Alto. So do I have the right hat on? All right, good. Now that we've gotten through the important issues, let me thank Ivo Martinetti for his musical performance, Robin Bishop, Caitlin Remmel, and Lenny Siegel, and the special thanks to Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Not only is Tulsi a remarkable member of the Congress from the beautiful state of Hawaii, but she is a veteran. She served in Iraq. And she understands the true cost of war because she has seen that with her own eyes. And she knows, and I know that you know, that we must not get involved in wars that we should not get involved with. And I tell Tulsi and all of you that if elected president, we will not be involved in perpetual warfare in the Middle East or anyplace else. We began our campaign over a year ago in Burlington, Vermont. And you got to come up and visit us. It is a very beautiful state. And when we began, all of the experts and the media decided that we were a fringe candidate. Our campaign was not going to go anywhere. Well, a year has come and gone, and here we are. And our campaign has been dismissed and written off more times than I can count. And we are still standing, and with your help, we're going to win here in California on June 7th. See, I read the newspapers, the New York Times and the other papers, they all said the campaign is over. But then I just suddenly saw Hillary Clinton racing to California, Bill Clinton racing to California. Maybe they think this campaign is not quite over. And I agree with them, because we're going to win here in California. We're going to win many of the other states up on June 7th. We're going to leave California with enormous momentum going into the convention. And I believe we've got a real shot to come out of that convention with the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. And if we do come out with the nomination, Donald Trump is toast. No way will Trump become elected president if we are the campaign to oppose him. And I'll tell you why for a couple of very objective reasons. Now, we are not objective, we're a little bit subjective, but you're all big scientists here, right? You know about objectivity. And here is reason number one. If you look at virtually every poll that has come out in the last several months, national polls and statewide polls, what they show is that we defeat Trump often by double-digit numbers. And second of all, in virtually every single instance, national polls, state polls, we do much better against Trump than does Secretary Clinton. Just a poll came out a few days ago here in California, one of the most progressive states in this country, Clinton was ahead of Trump by 10 points. Not a lot, for given the nature of California. We were ahead of him by 17 points. But it is not just the polls. Polls go up and down. What it is that Republicans win national elections when people are demoralized, when they give up on politics, and when voter turnout is low. Progressives and Democrats win elections when people are energized, when they're prepared to stand up and fight, come out to vote to transform America. There is no objective observer who could deny that it is our campaign that has the energy, that has the momentum, that will result in a high voter turnout in November. And a high voter turnout means we not only retain the White House, it means that we regain the U.S. Senate and we win governor's chairs all over this country. So my message is to the 400 superdelegates who came on board Secretary Clinton's campaign before anybody else was in the race. Which, if you think about it, is pretty absurd. And the whole concept of superdelegates, I think, has got to be rethought. But superdelegates came on board Clinton's campaign 8 months before the first ballot was cast in Iowa. That is pretty nuts. And I would hope that every delegate to the Democratic National Convention understands that we must bring forth the strongest candidate to make sure that a walking disaster like Donald Trump never becomes president of the United States. Now, see, taking on Trump will be a very interesting experience because you have a man who, as I know all of you know, is one of the world's great scientists. He has studied drought and he has studied climate change for decades, written extensively on this issue. And he came here to California to tell you what you didn't know, and that is California is not experiencing a drought. Thank God he came here to California to tell you that. And the other thing that he has come here to tell you is that climate change is a hoax. Now, virtually every scientist in the world, and I've talked to many of them, who have studied the issue, understand that climate change is very real, caused by human activity, and is already causing devastating problems in the United States, in California, and all over the world. But we thank the Donald for telling us that all of the scientific community is wrong and that he is right. But despite the brilliance of that great meteorologist, Donald Trump, if elected president, we will transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy like wind, solar, geothermal. And Silicon Valley, we need your help. We need your innovation. You can help lead this country in breakthrough technologies which help us transform our energy system and make energy not only clean but cost effective. One of the gratifying aspects of this campaign, and it should give all of us a great deal of optimism, is that in every primary and caucus throughout this long campaign, we have won, often by overwhelming numbers, the votes of young people. And by young people, I don't mean just the 20-year-olds. I mean people 45 years of age and younger. And to the 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, I know that you think 45 is kind of old, right? But when you get to be 45, you're going to think it's kind of young. But in any case, why that gives me an enormous amount of gratification and should give you that same gratification is that our message in this campaign of creating a nation and a vision based on social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. That whether Donald Trump likes it or not, whether Hillary Clinton likes it or not, that is the future vision of this country. This campaign is going to win because we are addressing the tough issues facing the United States, and because we are doing something very unusual in contemporary American politics, we are telling the truth. And here's the truth. It's not a pleasant truth, but it is the truth nonetheless. Today in America, we have a corrupt campaign finance system which is undermining our democracy. Democracy is not a complicated process. It means one person, one vote. It does not mean billionaires buying elections. And that is why together we are going to overturn Citizens United and move to public funding of elections. But it's not just the corrupt campaign finance system, it is a rigged economy. It is an economy where the very, very rich get richer while almost everybody else gets poorer. The United States should not be a nation in which the top 1/10 of 1% now own almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. We should not be a nation in which the wealthiest 20 people own more wealth than the bottom 150 million people, half of our country. We should not be a nation where people are working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep their heads above water. We should not be a nation in which mom is out working 40 hours a week, dad works 40 hours a week, kids work hard, and 58% of all new income generated today goes to the top 1%. Together, we are going to create an economy that works for all Americans, not just the 1%. But it is not just a corrupt campaign finance system and a rigged economy. It is a broken criminal justice system. This campaign is asking the American people to think outside of the box, outside of the status quo. Think about options that you don't see on corporate television. And that is to ask yourself, among many other things, how does it happen that in our great country we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? And those people are largely and disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. Today, in inner cities and in rural communities all over this country, youth unemployment, kids who graduated high school, is 30, 40, 50%. We are going to invest in our young people, in jobs and education, not in jails and incarceration. I want to see our kids doing meaningful, well-paid jobs or be in school, not rotting in jail cells. And we're going to take a hard look as we examine the criminal failure of our current criminal justice system at local police departments all across this country. The average police officer today is honest and hardworking and has a very difficult job to do. But when a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to make police departments reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. We have to end corporate ownership of jails and detention centers. We have to change law enforcement culture so that all across this country, police officers understand that lethal force is the last response, not the first response. We have got to rethink the so-called war on drugs. Millions of Americans over the last 30 years have police records as a result of possession of marijuana. Today, under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug right next to heroin. Elected president, we're going to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. The question of legalization, as all of you know, is a statewide issue, not a federal issue. There will be an item on the ballot here in November calling for legalization strictly, among other things, from a criminal justice point of view. I hope that ballot item passes. This campaign is listening to ordinary Americans and not wealthy campaign contributors. And what this campaign has done, which is revolutionary, is that we are running a winning national campaign without a super PAC. We do not want, we do not need campaign contributions from Wall Street, the drug companies, or billionaires. And what we have done is unprecedented in this campaign. We have received some 8 million individual campaign contributions. Anyone know the average? That's right, $27. And what that shows is that we can run a winning campaign without begging the billionaire class for campaign contributions or being indebted to them. And now, as many of you know, Secretary Clinton has chosen another path to raise her campaign funds. She has a number of super PACs and has raised many millions from Wall Street and other special interests. In my view, our job is to take on Wall Street, not take their money. This campaign is listening to the working people of this country. What they are telling me is the $7.25 federal minimum wage is a starvation wage. We've got to raise it to $15 an hour. And when we talk about equitable wages, we have got to end the sexist disgrace of women making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. And I know that every man here will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. And women are also telling me that they are tired of hearing Republicans going all over the country talking about family values. Because women understand exactly what that means. And what that means under the Republicans is that no woman here in California or in America should have the right to control her own body. We disagree. And what Republican family values also mean is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to get married. We disagree. This campaign is listening to young people. And what young people are asking me is, how does it happen when they do exactly the right thing and they go out and get the best education that they can? Why are they ending up $30,000, $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 in debt? If you think outside of the box for a second, everybody here knows, and everybody in America knows, we're living in a very competitive global economy. If this country and our economy are to do well now and in the future, we need the best educated workforce in the world. We should be encouraging people of all ages to get the education they need, not punishing them. "50 years ago, you had a high school degree. You're doing okay. You can go out, you can get yourself a decent job, you can make it into the middle class." By and large, those days are gone. Today, with an exploding technology, a changing economy, people need more education. And that is why when we talk about free public education today, it is not good enough to talk about first grade through 12th grade. We need to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Does anybody here think that that is a radical idea? It is absolutely not a radical idea. It is the most commonsensical, smart idea that you can think of. And by the way, anybody here know how much college costs in Germany? In Scandinavia? What those countries understand, it is in their best interest to invest in the education of their young people. We should learn that lesson. How many people here have student debt? Well, I have talked to people all over this country who are paying off outrageously high rates of student debt. They're paying it off year after year, sometimes, not to get you very nervous, decade after decade. I believe that what we should do with student debt is allow people who have those loans to refinance them at the lowest interest rates they can find. And now I have been criticized very often. People say, well, Bernie, you're a nice guy. You're Santa Claus. You want to give away free tuition. You want to substantially lower student debt. How are you going to pay for it? I will tell you exactly how we pay for it. We pay for it by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. 8 years ago, the middle class of this country bailed out Wall Street. It is Wall Street's time to help the working families of this country. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. And what they are telling me is that there are 11 million undocumented people in this country, and many of them are being ruthlessly exploited every single day on the job. When you have no legal rights, your employer can cheat you, can pay you wages that are much too low, and overwork you, and you have no recourse, nothing you can do about that. And if you think that is not happening right now to farm workers in California, you would be sorely mistaken. In my view, Congress must pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. We must end the current deportation policies. And if Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the president to do everything I can. This campaign is listening to the African American community. And what they are asking me, quite intelligently, is how does it happen that we can spend trillions of dollars on a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into, but somehow we don't have the funds to rebuild inner cities in this country. Well, if I'm elected president, we are going to make fundamental changes in our national priorities. We're not going to get involved in wars that we should not be involved in. We're not going to be overthrowing governments every year, but we will be investing in inner cities and in rural communities who need those investments. I'm proud to tell you that this campaign is listening to a people whose pain almost is never heard, and that is the Native American community. Everybody here knows that the Native American people from the very beginning of this country have been lied to, cheated, and treaties they negotiated have been abrogated. But everybody here also knows that we owe the Native American people a debt of gratitude that we can never fully repay. They have taught us so much and enriched our culture in so many ways. And most importantly, what they have taught us, and it is a profound lesson that we cannot fail to heed, and that is that as human beings, something they have always known, as human beings, we are part of nature. We must live with nature. And if we continue to destroy nature, we are ultimately destroying the human species. And yet, all over this country, the Native American people are hurting. High unemployment, high poverty rates, inadequate schools, inadequate health care. If elected president, we will change fundamentally our relationship to the Native American people. When we talk about the needs of human beings, when we talk about what rights are, human rights are, to my mind, we must recognize that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. Every other major country on earth, throughout Europe, in Canada, guarantees health care to all of their people. We are the sole major country exception. If elected president, we will no longer be the exception. In my view, health care is a right of all people. The Affordable Care Act has done some very important things, but we need to go further. Not acceptable that 28 million people have no health insurance and even more are underinsured with high deductibles and co-payments. Certainly not acceptable that we get ripped off every day by the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. Together, we will pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. This campaign understands that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it all alone. Wall Street is too powerful. Corporate America is too powerful. Corporate media is too powerful. Wealthy campaign contributors are too powerful. The only way we transform this country and make our nation become the country we know it can become is when millions of people from coast to coast stand up in a political revolution and demand and create a government which works for all of us, not just the 1%. And that is what this campaign is about. All of you know, if you spend 5 minutes studying American history, that real change in America never comes from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. That is the history of the trade union movement, where workers stood up and demanded to be treated with respect and dignity as workers. It is the history of the civil rights movement, where over a period of hundreds of years, millions of Americans stood up and fought back so that this country, once and for all, would rid itself of the bigotry and the racism and the segregation which has weighed us down and embarrassed us all. Millions of people engaged in that struggle over the years. Some were killed, some went to jail, some were beaten, some lost their jobs. But they had a vision for America, and they were prepared to fight for that vision. Many young people don't know that less than 100 years ago, not a long time from an historical perspective, women in America did not have the right to vote, to get the education they wanted, or the jobs they wanted. But women in America, by the millions, stood up, fought back, and they told the establishment that they would not be second-class citizens. think for a moment about the incredibly brave struggle of the gay community in America and the kind of hatred and bigotry which they had to oppose as they stood up with their straight allies and saying that in America, people should have the right to love whoever they wanted, regardless of their gender. This campaign has learned those historical lessons. And what is happening now across this country, from Maine to here in California, people are looking around. And they're asking themselves, why has it happened that over the last 25 years, the middle class of this country has been shrinking, shrinking, and shrinking? Why is it that people in Vermont are working 2 or 3 hours, two or three jobs, and almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%? Why do we continue to have a corrupt campaign finance system? Why are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave? Why are we not doing more to transform our energy system and take on the fossil fuel industry? Why are we paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? Why are women still earning 79 cents on the dollar compared to men? Why are young people leaving school $50,000, $70,000 in debt? And those are the questions that the American people are asking. And they are increasingly understanding that the answer to those questions is to create a government which listens and responds to the needs of working families and the middle class. And not just billionaire campaign contributors. On June 7th, there is going to be an enormously important Democratic primary here in California. And here is the simple truth. If the turnout is low on June 7th, we will lose. It's a close election, we will lose. If the turnout is high, we will win. If the turnout is very high, we will win by large numbers. So I am asking all of you to help us make June 7th the largest turnout of any Democratic primary in California history. And when we do that, California will help lead this country into the political revolution. Thank you all very much.